It starts with an idea, then it becomes something else.
There's a picture in your head, and it's trying to pull it out, trying to make that real.
We start to combine things. It is very precise.
It takes years to master. You need to be dedicated.
Details are not details. Details are everything.
That's what inspires me.
I'm John Glazer. I'm the founder and whiskey maker at Compass Box Whiskey. We call ourselves whiskey makers because it combines the product and the process. We're not distillers, and we're more than blenders. We're whiskey makers.
We sit on hallowed ground, and that you yourself have a significant personal and professional connection with the place.
It was in this store that I bought a single cask of Cambus. It was distilled in 1964, and I just fell in love with it because it was so utterly delicious. And I would come back and buy other bottles and buy other bottles, and that became this benchmark. It was like, I want to make something as good, as compelling as this. From the beginning of Compass Box, I wanted to show people a side of whiskey that not many people knew about. When I started, what I was doing was way out there. Blends seemed to be declining, and these single malts seemed to be growing. But I was so captivated by the deliciousness of grain whiskey. Why don't we bottle this stuff? This tastes so delicious. People think it's the crap filler. Well, if that's what people think, it's our obligation to do something to change people's perception. And I started with a grain whiskey, with hedonism. Kitchen table was my blending room. The dining room was my office. The hallway was my warehouse. The industry was crying out for new approaches to make it more relevant to more people. Just because it's always been done a certain way doesn't mean that has to be the way forever. The morning that I bottled the first ever hedonism, I loaded the boot of my car and drove right down to Royal Mile in Edinburgh, one of the world's most famous whiskey shops. And Compass Box was born, and hedonism was launched to the world on that day.
Compass Box's impact has been seismic in terms of shifting not only the profile of whiskies, but the way that people thought about them. It must have been so hard at that time, 20 plus years ago. It was a very different territory.
It happened at the turn of the millennium. Single malt was front and center. To do a blended grain would have been a big move. It probably felt like the perfect time to do something as revolutionary as hedonism.
Hedonism was a eureka moment for me for grain whiskey to understand what that can mean. And hedonism for me is my gold standard.
Hedonism has always been representative of the ethos of Compass Box. It's always been an embodiment of who we are. It challenges people's perception of Scotch whiskey and grain whiskey in particular, and it is about the creativity of blending.
What's in this glass? Or what are you getting now?
I'm just getting the quintessential hedonism character. It's, to me, pastry cream, vanilla. Also, when we taste this, you'll get the coconut in the finish. This is classic hedonism.
I'd never really considered what a blended grain could be. The flavor profile was something incredibly unique. You had all of these kind of luscious tropical notes, a light, sweet vanilla profile. As a bartender, it was this incredible new tool.
How has hedonism changed over time?
Hedonism has stayed really true to its origin in terms of its character over 20 plus years. But we looked at our stocks a couple of years ago and realized that given how sales of hedonism were growing, we weren't going to be able to have enough of the character of stock to maintain the growth. We took the decision to just every year create a batch and then release it as a limited annual release. The idea now with our limited annual releases for hedonism is we want to bring in a different female artist each year to create for us her version of the original Compass Box woman.
There's very few artists incorporating ancient techniques with modern painting. The water gilding technique hasn't changed really in 700 or 800 years. It's a very long and laborious process. So many mistakes have to be made before you can get a perfect surface. Gold leaf is incredibly delicate. It's microns thin. It gives you that illusion that it's solid gold. It disappears when you touch it. It's like dust. It has a divine quality, there's no doubt about it. I quite like the drama in art. And that's what it's for, is to take you away from somewhere.
Label design has always been really important to us. When I put that woman's face on the first Hédonisme label, this image from a late 19th century English painting, it was the first time a woman's face was on a Scotch whisky label. I wanted it to be distinctive. I wanted it to stand out.
Great design has been central to Compass Box since, the beginning days. It was so exciting to see the progressive nature of those labels.
And the connection I'd like to see through all of them over the years is the stare, the eyes from that original Compass Box woman. Oh my God.
You're happy with it?
I think I'm in love with it.
Oh my goodness.
On many levels.
Oh, I'm so pleased.
Oh my goodness, it's just so beautiful. Oh, and just the detail. When I was in the room with it for the first time, it was astonishing. The detail, the realism of her painting, it was really mastery. I was moved.
So all the stars I've punched in are actually in the right place, which is no one would know but me.
She even included the name Compass Box being inspired by a constellation called Pyxis.
Obviously, it's going to be on a bottle as well. It's smaller, but I needed to have a strong design that would catch the eye from a distance. She has got an unbelievable 100-yard stare.
She's looking out and saying, "You underestimate me at your peril."
Yes. My work is about feminine strength. She's self-assured. She's a young, confident woman.
Indeed.
Her world is her oyster. I like the interactive quality that it has. It changes colour depending on the time of day. You all see yourself reflected back in it. Women are going to see themselves in that. We've been fighting against it for a long time to have a depiction of a female that isn't passive, that isn't being looked at. I want the women in my work to be symbolic of what it is to be feminine and powerful.
We're at a time now where I think whiskey is becoming more diverse. To have a woman on a bottle and one that's looking directly at the consumer is really important, and I think it will have a huge knock-on effect to other brands and what they want their liquid to stand for.
So is it going to go all over the place then?
Well, Stephanie, I'm afraid so. If you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
It's going to go all over the world.
I like to give an impression or an emotion, and then the viewer take that story and finish it themselves.
They are an idea. They take you to a certain place, and then you go somewhere with it yourself.
Oh, wow. The detailing on it is insane. It genuinely is one of the most beautiful labels I've seen. That is quite something.
Oh my gosh. It's absolutely beautiful. She looks quite powerful, but also she's inviting you in to look at the bottle. As a woman, it feels so lovely to have such a beautiful picture of a woman on a bottle of whiskey.
I'm very excited to see this kind of glow on a back bar, because the way that it picks up the light is quite incredible.
What Scotch whisky really needs is people with different approaches to present it to the world in different ways. This whole business is about a constant state of evolution and change. We are pushing things forward. This is not about maintaining the status quo. This is about figuring out where we can go.